who's... And should we pass over? Oh, yes. What we would love to do is, if you can use the chat to start off with, we would love to know where you are in the world and what has brought you here. So what is your connection to circle holding? If you can pop in the chat where you are in the world and what your connection to circle holding is. So, yeah. Oh, I've got people from way back. My first ever yoga teacher's here. He's waving, Estelle's waving at me. That's brilliant. So yeah, where are you in the world? So we've got the Netherlands, Rapid City. Is that South Dakota, Susan? Yeah. Thank you. And this, and so that's, we've got people who are represented in the book from all over the world as well. Susan's from Gather the Women. Yeah, Ben's all the way in Newfoundland. And he is, or at least come in and out. And yeah, Ben's in the book as well. You'll hear from him later. And he's a breathwork facilitator, and lots of circle hold there. And Kim's done the circle holding course. Scotland, we've got Hannah in Scotland. She was with us in February. And Joanna from Oxfordshire, she's in the book as well, and she's in Tessa's Women's Circle. Yeah, Masima is a part of our publishing team. Yeah, Gemma is absolutely, her life's blood is circle holding. You'll hear from Gemma later as well. Oh, someone around the corner from me in London, and Daniel also. You're going to hear from him about career circles. Yeah. Oh, Estelle was my first ever yoga teacher over 25 years ago.
Only joined. We're just putting where you are in the world and what your connection is to circles. So feel free to add that into the chat if you've just joined. Shall we pass over to Mazuma?
Well, I think we were.
Or shall I do the settling practice first?
Bring us all in.
Because we wanted to sort of have a feeling of circle this evening as well. So you might have been rushing to find the link, and you might have had a really busy day. So just taking a moment to fully arrive. So if you're sitting comfortably, you might even want to take your eyes from the screen, close the eyes for a moment, and just check in with the body. If you've got something to lean against, you might want to lean back against whatever it is that's behind you. Feel your bottom on the chair seat. Notice where your legs are. Are they tucked up underneath you? Are your feet on the floor? And maybe just taking a moment to draw the attention all the way down to the toes and the tips of the toes. And perhaps noticing the breath. How is the breath? You notice it at the nostrils. Is it coming in and out through the mouth? Can you notice it in the chest or somewhere else? And as you breathe, I wanted to share a part of a poem that is shared in the book with permission from Jeff Foster. The heart is an unlimited room. There is always enough room for the contents of this moment. The highest joy, the deepest agony, thoughts that won't stop spinning, the heart can hold it all. Embrace is all it knows. Space is its nature. It needs no time. It asks nothing. It gives everything in return. So letting that just sink in for a moment, connecting with your own heart. And then opening the eyes, coming back to connect with each other. You might want to lean in a little bit and maybe see some familiar faces, maybe They're all new, but you're very, very welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I can see there are circle holders from all parts of our lives here this evening. We're now going to pass over to our editor. Where has she gone?
Right here.
There you are, right next to me. He's going to just introduce a little bit about us and them and the book. Over to you, Masuma.
Hi everyone, it's so lovely to see you all here today, and thank you so much for taking the time to come. I'm very pleased and honoured to introduce two of our brilliant authors, Julia Davis and Tessa Sanderson. Julia Davis has been running circles of various kinds for over 30 years. Published articles include Coaching World, O Magazine, and the Menopause Exchange. And she's also founder of the Yoga Teachers Forum, and Finchley Yoga. Tessa Sanderson, PhD, has been running talking circles for 10 years. She has written books for women and children and articles for Juno, Green Parenting, Mom Yoga, Mother and Baby. She lives in Reading, UK. My name is Masuma, and I am on the editorial team at Singing Dragon. Singing Dragon is a dedicated publisher. We've been around since 2006, and we've been publishing groundbreaking resources and building excellent relationships between authors and communities, which has resulted in market-leading texts on yoga, yoga therapy, nutrition, body work, Chinese medicine, acupuncture, complementary health, and much more. We're very, very honoured to be publishing Tessa and Julia's book. It's been an absolute privilege to work on, and so wonderful to be working with Julia and Tessa. They also have been running various circle facilitation trainings. They're both senior yoga teachers, CPT trainers, and mentors. So truly in the presence of experts. I'll pass on now to Tessa and Julia.
Thank you so much. So we wanted to ask Tanya to ask us some questions. So that you can understand a little bit maybe about why we wrote the book and the process of it unfolding. Tanya, do you want to introduce yourself?
I will. Thank you. Welcome everybody. And it's so, yeah, what an honor to be here. It's beautiful to be here and actually to see, both of your journeys unfold. And yeah, I was thinking back to the very first circle I came to you with Tessa, which was many, many moons ago. And, both of our journeys and how they've had their twists and turns and where it's led us. And so just to give you a little background of who I am. So my name is Tanya Forgan. I am a circle facilitator just down the road to Tessa. And my circles have really changed over the years. Just to give a little bit of history, I started off as a mindfulness teacher running 8-week courses in the days that they were very trendy. And, everybody was a mindfulness or yoga teacher in those days. And I was running courses, and there was one particular evening where it was pouring down with rain. And this is actually in the book. And I'd been running with all the seats in rows, and I had a small group, hardly anyone turned up. And so I just said, let's just bring the chairs into a circle. I'd never heard of a circle. I didn't know what it was. I said, let's just sit in a circle tonight. And I remember that moment of a real palpable change. Something shifted in my system. Something awoke in me where I was like, oh, this feels different. Little did I know it was the start of my journey as a circle facilitator. So my work started to unfold from there. Circles found me, it seemed, for a long time. And then I'm going to fast forward actually to 2020 when George Floyd died. And I've been running circles, holding spaces for mixed groups, women's circles. And something, again, it was another moment of, big change for me, where I was really struggling with everything that was happening, and found myself in a group with other women that were mixed race, the same as me, and had a similar journey and were experiencing the same struggles of not knowing where to place themselves. And this is also in the book. And from that place, and from me being in a circle and really journeying very deep in those days, I'm sure you can all relate to, those times were really, you know, they really challenged so many of us, if not all of us. Then something else woke in me where it was like, where are the spaces for these stories of existing in bodies of both black and white? So a whole new body of work emerged from that called Blended Roots, which is a circle space for women to come to who are mixed race. So that was really beautiful. It's a piece of work that's nearly completed now, actually. It feels like it was a call and response to the times. But yeah, I remember, Julia, you interviewing me about that, and we were talking about it. It was very kind of new and fresh at the time. And yes, it's been absolutely beautiful. So yeah, it was a real honor for me to be interviewed. We had a live interview, didn't we? And then also to bring my voice in about my journey with circle facilitation, also being in circle myself. And so yeah, it's an absolute honor for me to be here and to now interview the two of you about this amazing book, which, you know, what a gift it is. And for me, what I celebrate in this book is the diverse voices that exist within it. It feels like it's got a freshness, there's a newness in it. And yeah, I'm in absolute celebration of it. So I'm curious to know, why did you write a book about circle holding? What was your why for this book?
It was my why, really, wasn't it, Tessa? I asked Tessa, I said, Tessa, I think I want to write a book about circle holding, and I don't think I want to do it on my own. Would you like to do it with me? And I think it's because that was the aspect of my work that I love the most. I've been a yoga teacher for years, but I've begun to enjoy it more and more when I brought people together to talk and to deeply listen to them. And it's something that's been in my life since I can't even remember not being in circle. It's part of my cultural heritage, sitting in circle. And I thought that was the piece. There are so many books out there about women's circles. And actually, subsequently, I have found a book about men's circles. But that didn't really talk to what I meant. And Tessa and I really loved the idea of creating something which would be a handbook for people, but alongside that, tell stories so that people could really imagine what it might be like to, you know, see themselves in the circle. What about you, Tessa?
Yeah, I think for me, during the pandemic, a book came out that was written by the Red Tent, two ladies that had been running the Red Tent directory for quite some years. And I received the book, and it had so much good stuff in it, but it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, which is a sort of step-by-step guide, so that somebody could start a talking circle really from nothing. They just maybe felt that they wanted to build community, help connection where they live, and just to have tips about how to open it, how to do bit by bit each component. And I felt like that wasn't really out there at the moment. There were a couple of books around women's circles specifically, but Julia and I were really clear right from the beginning. We wanted this to be for any demographic, any topic of interest. And I hope that's what we've delivered.
Yeah, I see that, and it feels so important for these times where inclusivity and diversity is, yeah, it's like the heart of circle holding. I have a question mark. It's like, if we're not inclusive, why are we doing what we do? So yeah, really celebrating both of you in that. I wonder how it was for you to work, like co-writing a book. Did you fall out at any point?
I didn't. I
No.
loved it. I think Tessa's got an amazing skill set. She's very structured and thoughtful and has a huge amount of knowledge. And we both kind of batted things to each other, and we're both massive readers as well. And I really wanted to interview people. I really wanted to speak to a whole variety of circle holders. And I think we just found our way and found our roles.
You make it sound simple, though. It's not quite how I remember it. Because I remember we had a few false starts where I remember really clearly we met one summer's day in a park near Paddington. I got the train up and we met in the park and we sort of thought, right, what are the things that we'd want to write chapters about? And then under those chapter headings, we kind of were thinking of what would go in those chapters. And so we sort of allocated those to each other. And then, okay, let's talk in 2 weeks and we'll see what we started to write. But I think it took us a while to find a kind of common voice. And then once we did that, it just started flowing really easily. And I think we were both quite clear that we wanted to have lots of stories.
We lost you. I think, yeah.
Have you got me back?
Yeah.
Yeah, that we wanted to have stories, we wanted to have exercises, we wanted to have people, chance for people to reflect on their own situation and the circle they want to run. So there were sort of different threads to the book.
Yeah, we were really inspired by other writers as well. There's Jess Glennie's an amazing, she's also published by Singing Dragon, and she structured her book, which is Yoga Teacher Mentor. She's written a few books, but she structured her book so beautifully with exercises. And I just thought it would be really useful for people to have a little exercise they could do to work out where they were going to go next. And I love the way that was structured in her book, and she's been very kind. She's been very kind, and I think it's really lovely to have other people who are inspiring to help us along the way. It doesn't feel like we wrote this book alone at all.
Yeah, I would agree. That's my experience of it. It feels like a collaboration of voices that you've held, which is obviously also reflective of circle holding. It's like bringing voices together, giving people space to be seen and heard. And that's what I really experience in the book. Yeah. So if you were going to kind of bring it all together and say, this is what this book is about, and this is who it's for, what would you say?
Shall I go? I can go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm not one for making people kind of rubber stamp something before they start. I really love the idea of somebody sitting at home thinking, I need this community. I don't know how I'm going to create it, but I'm going to start anyway. And for them to find our book and go, you know what, as I find my way, I've got something to guide me. And it would be lovely to think that someone would read it from cover to cover and get all the training that they might need to in order to hold circle. But so many of, like, I'm somebody who used to think, oh my goodness, I'm not qualified. I can't do this. And I want people to think, yeah, you know what, I can, and it matters, and it's okay to fail. And it's all right if there's 3 of us in the room. In fact, I was talking to somebody at Tessa's 10th anniversary circle, and she came to one of our trainings and she started a circle and it had 3 people in it. And then the next week, no one turned up. And now she's doing something completely different that's online, that is working. And we wrote the book for her, and we wrote the book for all the people like her out there who want to, not be sitting in front of the telly of an evening every evening, maybe having an opportunity to be with others.
I think for me, it's about creating that space where, for once, you can really be deeply listened to and be authentically who you are. That's just such an amazing experience to have. So if the book helps more people to have that, then I'll be very happy.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just reflecting as you were both sharing there. To me, the book feels like it's like the Circle Facilitator's handbook that you can just reach into at any, you know, literally open a page and have another insight for something that can deepen circle work again and again and again. And there's something really, yeah, really truly wonderful about that. So
We'd love
yeah,
it to be well thumbed. We would love it, you know.
yeah,
My favorite books are like Tessa shared Jeff Foster's poem. My book of his poetry is so well thumbed. It has pages turned down all over the place. It has underlines. It has all sorts of things. And I would love for our book to be the same, one that's kind of folded back and used again and again. That would be great.
Thank you both. Celebrating both of you for your wonderful contribution to the world of circle facilitation. So there will be time for more questions, but for now,
I am aware that we've got some amazing people who've come from very, very far away, and we've invited them to share. They were very, very generous with their time when we were writing the book, and they've been really generous to come this evening. And we're going to invite people to just say a little, you know, one of their quotes from the book. And thank you very much, Tanya, for taking the time to interview us. We're going to call on Ben first, because I know Ben's come from he's all the way in Canada, and I know he could come with and be here for the first half of the circle. So Ben, I'm going to invite you in. You can say hello, say a little bit about you, and then if you're happy to share your quote first before you need to leave us, that would be amazing.
Well, thank you so much, Julia, for inviting me today. And Tessa, having read some of your words, it's a real privilege to be with you here today, but to be with everyone, I think, feels very special at this moment. I'm a breathwork facilitator, and part of what I do with the breath is to hold space for people. Sometimes it's talking, but sometimes just holding. There's more than one way to communicate. I use the breath all the time to do this. So perhaps maybe just a different way to hold a circle. Perhaps we could all take a few breaths together. Would that be all right, Tessa? Would that be all right, Julia? Okay, so let's just do that. Take a few breaths if it helps. Put a hand on your heart. You do it with your eyes opened or your eyes closed. Actually, let's do it with our eyes closed to begin with and come into presence with ourselves first. And then when you feel present, open your eyes. If you can, have the Zoom room on gallery view. Take some breaths with all the amazing people here, with their energy, with their wisdom, with their experience. And as you do that, allow yourself to be seen and to be witnessed as well. And then just for a moment, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes again and just connect to something that is deeper than just yourself, or deeper than everyone in this room. Whatever words you use to describe that sacred, divine part of ourselves, the spirit that moves through us all, the universe, the world. Let's take a breath in acknowledgement of that too. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to be honest, Julia, and to everyone, I don't have my quote in front of me. I'm not sure I can actually give those words, which I'm sure were just, you know, the most genius words that anyone has ever said to you all in life now. So, Julia, if you have them there, maybe you could read them on my behalf.
You know what's beautiful is that you've shared the essence of what you do, and your holding work in that moment where you had us share a breath together. So I really appreciate you sharing that with a beautiful way of showing people how to create a little bit of embodiment coming into ourselves. So I will share.
Well, I've sent the quotation. Yeah, I've sent it. Can you see it, Ben?
Oh, can you see it, Ben?
In the chat.
Because then you might be able to share it.
It'd be nice to hear it.
Yeah, it'd be lovely to hear you.
Okay. People need to go to those deep places. They also need to be reminded how joyful life can be. The fun side, not just permission to have fun, but it needs to be celebrated. It needs to be normalized. We can play like children. Introducing music can bring joy and fun into circles. We are allowed to be foolish and to get it wrong and just to have a laugh. I often start my circles with the phrase, "Should we just have some fun today?" Lightness and joy and humour allow us to go deeper, allow us to open up more. So I begin with the idea, what can we do to bring in joy?
Lovely, thank you. I love that quote. It's so
Thank you.
important to remember the fun and the lighter side of it too. That's amazing.
That reminds me of Ben inviting me to dance to the bare necessities of life at one of his circles. Thank you, Ben. Okay.
I think we go to Joanna next as a participant of a circle.
Thank you very much for having me today, and massive congratulations to you both. I've been part of Tessa's circle on a slight hiatus at present, but I found her when I turned 40, and at a most important time of my life. We had a lot in common, still have a lot in common, and going to her circles really did change the way I look at life. So thank you. My quote from the book is this: "Being part of a circle meant I could address feeling vulnerable and sharing a part of me that I'd kept safely closed away. It meant I could learn to be open and to know that what I shared wasn't going to be openly judged. It also meant that I learnt the power of challenging the idea and not the person in a safe and compassionate way. My time in circle is cherished and valued, and I recognise how much I look forward to belonging to such a special group. And the friendships that I've made from being part of the circle have been affirming and enhancing. Being truly heard and seen still feels like a rare and precious treat."
Oh,
Thank you for sharing that, Joanna.
it's so lovely to hear those words. And it must be, I mean, how special is that for you, Tessa? Because that's what you created.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Joanna's been a very lovely supporter all the way through of different books I've written. So big thank you to Joanna. Julia, do you want to read Lydia's? Have you got it to hand?
Yeah, she had said that she was joining us, but she hasn't made it quite yet. So I'll share hers next. I remember feeling so accepted and free in my first circle. Others were vulnerable, which helped me to open up after first feeling anxious about doing so. I remember feeling a strong sense of community and connection that I don't often get elsewhere, and that is what brought me back. I recall one women's circle where I couldn't even really describe what we did or why it was special, but I felt such a connection that stays with me to this day. So that was Lydia's experience of being in circle. And we thought it was lovely to have the opportunity to have not only the experience of circle holders in the book, but also the people who are part of a circle. Because as much as it's a guide to circle holding, we hope that the book will encourage people who feel nervous about attending a circle also to go along, because it's actually amazing how long it might take someone to feel brave enough to join a space, and how much hand holding they might need and they might need somebody to come with them, or two people to come with them, and they might decide to come and then not turn up, and then it might take them 2 or 3 more times before they make it. So as circle holders, I think that's quite encouraging, because we know that, you know, it really is a brave step that someone's taken to join us.
I always say it has the longest contemplation stage of anything. It takes people ages and ages sometimes to get to their first circle. I think maybe we'll just read one more from a participant, and then we'll go to some other circle facilitators.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Billy couldn't be here today. She was at my in-person book launch in Caversham just before half term. But I think what she says really encapsulates the kind of space that we're after. It isn't just a chit chat, but a space to be yourself, whatever you are that day, whether to be strong or fall apart. It's a different kind of environment to go inwards. You might not have that space normally, depending on your situation, like if you have children or are a carer. In the circle, you don't have to be fixed. You are heard. I've always felt nourished in that space. So that's Billy, and she's been there since the very beginning of my women's circle 10 years ago. So she's been there all the time.
I'd love to invite Gemma to speak next. Gemma, I really appreciate. Gemma has a very full life. She's a most amazing circle holder, and I was really privileged to, you know, that she spent the time and gave me so much of her time when I interviewed her for the book. And I'm really grateful for you. I know, you know, life is very full for you with very young children. So thank you so much for joining us this evening and for sharing a few words with us, Gemma.
Thank you, Julia. I went to go and get my baby. He was crying upstairs, and I shall knock my laptop off, close it, leave the meeting, and lose my quotation. But I think I've found it, so bear with me.
Okay, great.
I've
I've got it here if you need it.
And it's nice to have baby Sky here with me, who I facilitated my first circle with her when she was 5 days old. She was like she's always there in the circle. Okay. So I talked about my first experience of facilitation. It was like I was standing on the precipice of holding something, thinking this could go in any direction. I have no control. As a first-time facilitator, it was terrifying. It's not appealing to me to be in a room where I share my voice and people listen. It's not the way I'm inclined at all. And so I can remember my voice shaking when I opened the space. And the way that I handled that was to acknowledge and name it. It's hard for me to share my voice. Maybe it's hard for you to do that too. There's a space where we can allow them to wobble, where we can feel nervous, where we can allow ourselves to experiment with opening our mouths and see what comes out. And from day one in that circle, it felt really important to me, not pretending to be anything other than I was.
I loved it interviewing Gemma. I loved her whole story. I really hope that you enjoy reading more from her in the book. And her work is a real testament to women's circles. She calls it sister stories, and I love that she does that. I love that she's created something for women. But I also really, really loved that the voices of the men that were brought into the book, and it's really so unusual to hear men's voices associated with circles. So Gemma, I'm very grateful for all the work that you do and all the amazing stuff that you do for women, but I'd love now to bring in a couple more of the men. Daniel Groom has a really, he's only got a little quote, but by all means do say more, Daniel, because Daniel's a massive inspiration to me. He's a man that's done the most amazing work for and with the LGBTQ plus community. A real testament, you know, the work that he's done with alongside others. He didn't do it just all by himself, but if I was, you know, from the LGBT plus community and I lived in Southend, I would owe a huge amount of gratitude to the work that he's done and the way that it's grown so beautifully. So maybe Daniel, you can say a little bit more than, if you'd like to, a little bit more than your quotation.
Thank you, Julia. What a lovely introduction. You have to excuse my voice. I'm dealing with man flu at the moment, so it's nice to be in a circle with people where I can just listen and have a tiny little bit to be involved with. But yeah, and thank you to Tessa as well for inviting me to be part of this, because I appreciate, sometimes the voices of people who maybe aren't so recognised in society can get forgotten about sometimes, and I think that's very much my experience. I started yoga teaching 25 years ago, yoga therapy about 10 years ago, and I was just like, where are all my queer people? Where are they? I don't know where they are, and I can't find them. Do you know what I mean? You'd see one in a class and then they'd disappear again. It was like, I want to be your friend. I want to talk to you about this stuff, because I just couldn't find the people that I needed. So I was very fortunate that, as all these things, they all seem to happen at once. But Southend Pride was sort of launching itself about 10 years ago, and was very needed in quite an impoverished area in Essex, where there is a lot of queer people. We tend to sort of radiate to cities and seasides, and we needed someone to represent us. So that happened, and then I suppose I just started to kind of, although I'd been identifying as a gay man, that wasn't sitting comfortably with me. So I was really using my yoga practice, my yoga therapy, to really interrogate my sexuality and my relationship to my gender. And again, I couldn't do that on my own. I needed people around me. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to set up a group and just see what happens. And it kind of started off as a yoga group. And then people were sort of like, oh, we want to sit and chat after. So we'd do a bit of yoga, do a bit of breathing, and then talk. And then it became more and more talking, because people were finding they just needed space to share. And particularly going through lockdown, it was a really difficult time for LGBT people, because feeling isolated, and then feeling isolated again from the community that you so relied on, that you probably didn't live with or wasn't able to sort of connect with within the normal places that we would go. So it was a real challenge, and being online at that time was hugely rewarding for me. It gave me so much, and I'm sure everyone that participated got so much out of it as well. But really, the context of why I felt this circle needed to be set up was, for so many LGBT people, we have to go and meet other people in environments we don't naturally feel that comfortable in. So bars, nightclubs, places like that, where people tend to gravitate because you can be yourself, because they're in a safe environment, but they're not the best place sometimes to form deep spiritual relationships with people. So I'll read you my quote. So I set it up because it's what I needed. Circle holding is a gateway to other ways for the community to come together, creating a space for people to have a voice, creating options outside of pubs and nightclubs for us to meet.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Whenever I speak to you, Daniel, I always learn more and more. You're a beautiful soul, and I know we wrote the book and we're saying, Daniel's is one of my favorite stories. I love it, and he's like a main reason why it meant so much to me to do something that was bigger than women's circles, that included voices that were not the voices that you might normally hear associated with the word circle. So I really hope that the queer community take the book and read what you've written, because it takes a lot out of you to do this work, and Daniel might not be the person to do it forever. And Southend is only one place in the world, so hopefully people will read your words, Daniel, and think, yeah, maybe I can do it in my front room. Maybe I can create a space for people too. So thank you. The next person I'm going to invite to talk. Lee, have you got your quote? Yeah. Lee's come across the pond to us, and he's got the organisation that Lee works with is also unbelievably special, and is very much outside of the remit of women's circles, and has done a huge amount of work with children and vulnerable children and all sorts of people. I think they're in 16 different countries, so it's really a global circle. So Lee, maybe you would like to say a little bit more about Narrative 4 and share your quotation. You've got two, I think.
I do. And I want to say, I just got the book, the actual physical book came in the mail, and I brought it all the way from I could have just picked it up in England. It would have been cheaper for you. Sending it to the US. First of all, thanks for inviting me and the voice, at least of our work. Narrative 4 is we're an empathy building organization, and we hold circles we try to bring many different voices, many different groups into a space who obviously they don't have a chance to interact at times. So we do it online and we do it in person. And, you know, the whole point is we kind of flip the script a little bit, because you don't just tell your own story, but you have to tell your partner's story in the first person to get as close to somebody else's lived experience as they can without obviously having lived it. So we call it radical empathy. So yeah, so Daniel, I was listening to your story a minute ago and what you were talking about, and it really, really resonated with me. And maybe Tessa and Julia's design is really good because I'm next, but it's really about inclusivity. And I was sort of thrown into this space. I'm still a novice in this. I honestly, sometimes when I'm reading this book and I'm reading all these beautiful quotes and tools that you've given people, I wish I had this book 10 years ago. But I still feel like, you know, I'm a student at this. But one thing that I do realize is that when we go into spaces, it's really important to have representation from the community that you're going into to either co-facilitate or facilitate the circle. Or we should be, because they have the trust of the community. And we've done a lot of work with I do a lot of work in Hartford with a friend of mine, Warren, and who we work with kids in gangs. And Warren himself was an ex-gang member, and he has a lot more trust and credibility to create a safe space and a brave space for people to show up than what I would walking into that community and then trying to get people to share stories. So my quote is literally that. It's important to have facilitators who are trained from the communities within. I'm a white middle-aged guy, in case you didn't notice that. It's not going to be easy for me to facilitate a space for kids who grew up in gangs, for example. So why don't we train people, and why aren't people being trained who come from the community that can lead and model the entire process for people? And then, so that's sort of the premise. And then the other quote is really just about, it's about the fear, the inherent fear when you walk into any space, which I still feel every day when I run a story circle. And I think if you lose some of that, you know, that sort of maybe that inner voice or that inner critic, then you would be doing yourself a disservice, because you'd sort of be flippant about it, whatever. You should be, we should always walk into that space with extreme you know, sort of grace and gratefulness for what we're about to walk into. So, and grace for yourself too, when we screw up, because that's happened a lot, at least in my work. So let me just grab the quote. There it is. So I said about circle holding, we don't have a magic wand. We are not perfect at it either. Did all the facilitations look pretty, especially the ones I've done over the years? No, of course not. I screwed up so many times I can't even tell you. But you learn, and you learn by doing, and we put more infrastructure in place, more safeguards, more parameters around things, more learning. So yeah, it's kind of me-pathy. You got to have some me-pathy too.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And there are, you know, I didn't realize when I interviewed people how many founders I would speak to, but you know, Ben's a founder, Jem is a founder, Daniel's a founder, Lee's a founder. So that means that and Tanya, I think everyone was a founder, like everyone started stuff from scratch. And it's, you know, Tessa and I have started things from scratch. It is scary. We're like, I've been scared all week about tonight. And that it just means we're human. And I'm so glad, Lee, that you were scared and you did it. And Gemma, you were scared and you did it. And Ben, that you were scared and you did it. And Daniel, that you were. And Tanya, that you were. And Tessa, that you were. And even me. So I love that you shared that quote about vulnerability, because I think there's a thought that, you know, people look at someone and they'll think that they're not scared and that they can do it without feeling vulnerable. And I don't think that's ever true. Like you said, Lee, if we lose our vulnerability, we've lost our humanity a little bit. So it's lovely to hear from somebody who you might think was inaccessible. I mean, you know, Narrative 4 is a huge organization. It's in 16 countries. And Lee's still a human, you know, he's still a human being who has vulnerabilities, who gets scared about things. So I'm hoping that hearing these voices, hearing all of your voices, will make somebody who's sitting there in their room petrified about doing this think, you know what, I'm going to be brave because it's going to be worth it. So thank you.
I might bring in Shoshana now, because she's also involved with Narrative 4 and wrote us a really beautiful testimonial for the book. Would you like to share part of it?
Sure, I would be happy to. Thank you. And thank you, Tessa, I didn't have it in front of me, so she typed it out into chat. And I just want to say, too, that I'm a co-founder of a Buddhist Sangha. So part of what we do is Dharma share. We share at the end, and we are in the practice of deep listening. And one of my teachers recently said to me that the way that we hear is through the ears, it goes to the brain, and then we respond from the mouth and gesticulating from the hands. And he was recommending and talking about his own practices, listening through the ears and then pausing, slowing down and letting it drop down into the heart before being in response. So this has been really helpful, both in Narrative 4 and the work that I do in the Sangha, just to be present with ideas around listening in the circle and what it means to be a participant in a circle. Okay, so the quote, the wonderful blurb for you guys for this great book. As an individual working in hospitals and prison settings, circle holding was a transformational read. I was excited for the philosophies and real-time practices that offered light bulb moments and thinking about shared listening and speaking spaces. In exploration of meaningful connection, the author's heartfelt voices were especially moving as they led us to gain insight into how various communities engage with the shared values of inclusivity, personal and communal growth. Beautiful book.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
Yeah, thank you. I really, appreciate you being here and the words that you've said. We've got about 10 minutes left of our circle. We're going to share maybe just a few words that we've shared from the book. And then we're going to open up the circle so that we can hear from you. So maybe you're a circle holder and you'd like to say a couple of lines about what you would love or what you do. But before that, I'm going to share a few words. In school, we're taught to debate. Importance is placed on having the ability to win an argument. We're also taught how to sit down in silence and listen to a figure of authority, to only speak when spoken to put our hand in the air if we want to speak or be picked upon to speak if requested by a teacher. Our basic needs, for example, to go to the toilet if we have our period, are questioned. At the dinner table, if we ever sit with others to eat dinner, we probably talk over each other and interrupt. We're offered daily examples in the media of politicians braying at each other and shaming others' views. Circle provides a different way, a space for us to know that our voices can be heard without ridicule or risk of violence. Somewhere, we are given the opportunity to learn listening skills. We've often wondered what the world would look like if these skills were exalted and taught. And in this book, we share many examples of where these skills are used in circle gatherings to transform lives. Over to you, Tessa.
So I don't remember exactly the very first time I was in a talking circle. It would have been at one of the women's retreats I went on. And the first circle I clearly remember was part of a training, and there were more than 20 women in the room with 2 extra facilitating. I remember the end of one day when we'd been diving deep into our experiences and big emotions were coming up. We were doing a final circle before finishing for dinner, sharing how we were feeling and what we'd learned from the day. And in the past, I would have felt a mounting pressure to say the right thing or a clever thing or a funny thing, so I wouldn't be judged as being out of place. And this time I felt a deep acceptance of myself and that it was okay not to know exactly what to say, not to say anything at all if I didn't want to, and that the others could take or leave what I said. I didn't spend the time thinking about what I was going to say when it was my turn, but really listened to the others. When it was my turn, I paused, sensing into what it was exactly I was feeling then. It wasn't particularly profound, but it was my truth at that moment in time, and it was wonderful to feel authentically me.
Thank you, Tessa. So if you've joined us and your voice hasn't been heard, maybe you might like to share a couple of sentences about your experience of being in circle or your experience of holding circle. Feel free to unmute if you'd like to share just a couple of sentences about your experience.
I would like to thank you because I did your course. Maybe it's 2 sentences. I did the online few hours with you, and I'm a yoga therapist. I run a yoga school as well. And there's a lot of international women. Also, I ran a meditation on Fridays, and afterwards people were asking questions and started to talk. And then I wanted to learn how to facilitate this in a way that was safe, etc. So really, before your book was out, which I will order, but I'm in the Netherlands, I applied, I actually did what you said you hope people would do. I structured my first circle on the 25th of October according to the things that you shared. It was really helpful. And it was, where is home for you? Because there's a lot of international women and displaced partners or another nationality, often brought up by 2 different nationality parents, and there's sort of trauma and other things associated. So that the first topic will be done again because I realized I gave too little time. But I just want to thank you. I had felt nervous and just about structuring it, and even bought an egg timer, for measuring time. And then I didn't really need this, but I just want to thank you because it's already helped me, what you've already shared. And so I will get your book. Thank you very much.
That's wonderful to hear. Is there anybody else that hasn't spoken that would like a chance to say a few words?
Oh, Estelle.
Oh, sorry.
Can you get your video? There you go.
Sorry. I'm going to go a little bit off track about the circle situation here. Are you able to see this man here? Sorry, I don't know if you can see this picture.
Yeah.
This was my first yoga teacher, and he was full of inspiration. And he used to have a gathering every single week. And I'm just feeling, was the seed of this man in me, and was it in turn Pastor Julia when she used to do yoga with me? Because he was the most beautiful person. And I love to think that Sri Indarnath, that was his name, has generated something from him. So it's not to do with your circles at all. I'm sorry, because I haven't been in a circle, but he held something like that. And here you are, Julia, perhaps carrying the seed of what he created himself. He was a lovely man. Thank you, Julia. And thank you to you as well, Tracy, because I don't know you. It's Tessa, sorry. I don't know you, but I will follow what you're doing now. It's beautiful. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Estelle. It's very special that you're here. Yeah, if I hadn't opened the yellow pages and found Estelle's classes all those years ago, who knows whether we'd be here today. So thank you, Estelle. We've probably got time for one more person to share if you'd like to.
I'd like to share a little tiny something. I did both of your circle holding course, and then I went off and I held a 4-hour workshop on voice and yoga, and I was petrified, totally petrified. And tonight has really renewed something for me, hearing the stories, Daniel and Lee and Benedict, and where's she gone, Gemma. And I think that this is really necessary, and to find that thing, you know, if you have the passion within to create a circle and to do it for the right reasons that you think will resonate with others. I think that your book sounds like it's going to be phenomenal. I can't wait to pick it up and read it. So thank you for this inspirational evening, and to everyone's input. It's really lit a fire in me. It's really beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Kim.
So we're coming towards the close of the circle. One of the things we talk about is timekeeping. In our circle, we like to keep things to an hour. We promised it's an hour. We've got a book club. And if you've read the book, you're thinking about reading the book, you've got friends you're recommending the book to, there are lots of exercises in it, and we thought that we'd give people the opportunity to experience 4 circles as well. So the book club starts on the 12th of November. It's 7:45 GMT. We're all over the world, so you can work that out. I want to be, you know, I'd love for you to mention it to your friends, let people know, and Tessa's shared the link to the book club there. And if you've bought the book already, thank you very much. And if you haven't and you'd like to, Tessa's also going to share a link to the Singing Dragon link, because that gives you a lovely discount if you'd like to buy it. So thank you so much for joining us today. And Tessa, would you like to lead us in a close of the circle?
I was just going to put the code for the discount. I'll do that in a moment. So just really simple way to finish. I'd love you to lean in, and if we were in person, we might bring our palms together, but we'll sort of bring our palms to the edges of the boxes as if we're kind of reaching to each other around the world and leaning in to see all these beautiful faces. And take a big breath in and a sigh out. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And yeah, let's keep those circles rippling out throughout the world.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're going to stop the recording. I think, Tessa, you've got to stop the recording because I'm not sure. Oh, thank you. You stop the recording, Tessa? And then if you want to stay for a few,